Good afternoon. Please be seated. We are going to start soon. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, friends, please be seated. We are going to start soon. Welcome to the session, Catalyzing System Approaches for Water and Climate Resilience. This session we are organizing together with all meteorological organizations, CV, UNICEF and AGWA. And today is the first part of the session. We will also have second part on 17th of this month on Monday, where we will have a more detailed case study and youth representation. We are going to talk about system approaches for water and climate resilience. And when we talk about water and climate resilience, climate action, I just thought, what could be climate action from the perspective, and what is the role of water? What are the climate action? We have to work on mitigation. That means that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, adapt, and if that is not sufficient, we have to migrate. But where to migrate? If we are feeling everywhere impact of climate change so severely. So in this session, we are going to look at what are the system approaches, what are the possibilities. Can we go to the next slide? So I'm going to give you some context from the hydrological perspective. As a hydrologist, my name is Anil Mishra. I'm the Chief of Hydrological System and Climate Change Adaptation in UNESCO's Intergovernmental Hydrological Program. Can we go to the next slide? The session, the main objective of the session is to share our understanding from hydrological perspective, from governance perspective, from management perspective, and we'll have a panel session which will look into the detail. Can we go to the next slide? Ladies and gentlemen, we have seen these drastic effect, these extreme events. Last year's flood in Spain, Hurricane Melissa just had its impact here in the Caribbean. We had devastated flood in Pakistan, flood risk from Glacier Lake outburst from the Switzerland, and WMO declared 2024 was warmest year on the record. Is there a problem with the hydrology? We are not able to solve it. Can you click? International Association of Hydrological Sciences said there are still 23 problems to be solved. Is this the hydrological problem or it's a management problem? Can you go to the next slide? What it is being said, the stationarity is dead. Past is no longer relevant to the future. There was a paper, very famous paper. What do we do if we have 20 years flood every year? How do we manage that? Can we go to the next slide? If stationarity is dead, what do we do now? How we attribute? How we really find solution, informed decision making? Do we continue to follow traditional planning, or we go new planning methods, stress test mechanism, real-time observation? Can we go to next slide? There are recent advancements in the science, and these are highlighted in the journal, how to attribute those and deal with uncertainty, non-stationarity, weather and water extremes, and how to attribute, how to detect, and how to apply that and management in the system approach. So we have to live with this non-stationarity and then try to link, try to attribute and provide meaningful adaptation strategies to the water resource manager. We are going to hear from some of those case studies. Can we go to next slide? So here comes one of the methodology, climate risk informed decision analysis, CRIDA, which starts with the shared vision planning. What are the drivers? Maybe climate is not itself is the driver. There are maybe other competing drivers. Water for energy, water for food, and we put through stress test mechanism whether the plausible stress test mechanism, what are the drivers that is detected and put back in the hydrological system. So it's a 5-step methodology. I would like to visit you to CRIDA methodology, which is available in the website. We did. This is available in 5 languages. We're translating into Chinese and other languages, and more than 3,000 people trained. 22 countries with 25 case studies have been undertaken. Next slide. This is recognized by World Bank as a resilient A methodology, but also by Green Climate Fund. If you apply for a Green Climate Fund, it is recommended to put this stress test mechanism in your proposal. Next slide. So this methodology is developed by IHP together with AGWA and many other partners. What is IHP? IHP is an intergovernmental hydrological program. Now we are in the 9th phase, Science for a Water Secure World. It's the only intergovernmental program which has a science in its mandate. So we have Science for Water Secure World. We have 34 expected outputs, and member states define more than 151 activities. And it's a huge water network from IHP chaired centers, category 2 centers all over the world. So welcome to IHP's water family. Next slide. With that, I would like to invite you to follow the session now. We will have a 3 case study presented. Case study will show how different sectors apply system-based approach to enhance water source management. Case study 1 will be presented from Brazil by Ms. Cristiane, Collet, Battiston, Anil, Brazil. Second will be Glauco, Kimura from AGWA, and third will be from Battiston from Québec case study. And then we'll have an interactive panel discussion. Can you go to the next slide? Where Dr. Stefan Uhlenbrook will moderate session and he will introduce to the panelists. So please be active and take part in the interactive discussion. With that, I would like to invite now Ms. Cristiane Battiston to also welcome you and present her case study. She is the director of Brazilian Water Authority, Anna. Cristiane.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you. I'd like to welcome you all here in Brazil for this event. I want you to feel so very welcome for Brazil. The multilateralism is so important, and we support that. I think it's very difficult to hear people. I'm sorry about that, but I'd like to thank you, Anil, for the invitation, and I'd like to congrats the IHP for the anniversary, for the work that you are done. So I'll show you here a little bit of how we manage the water resource in Brazil. Chris? This work? Here you can see about our landscape, and we have the Amazon basin here. You can see we receive a lot of water from our neighbors, and here we have the Freita basins, but we share sending a lot of water. So we have a complex water resource managing in Brazil, sharing with our country neighbors, and inside we share the jurisdiction with the states. So for doing a good water resources management, it's very important the data. We have a great system with hydrometeorological stations. It's not working. Even in the South America, and we share this data. All this data is public and it's available on our website. We have a great system for sharing all of this. Again, it's not working, sorry. And this is our, it's the face, our national system of information on water resources. And next one, I just have 5 minutes. Next one, please. And here you can see, you can find all the information, and we make available some decision support systems to help, especially the public agents to doing better public policies. And with this system, we manage the water rights system. And now we are presenting a new platform called AGWA Brazil that we share with the states, because nowadays they have their systems and the federal government has ours, and this makes it difficult to manage the water resources in an integrated way. Please, next. With this data, ANA produces a lot of studies that wants to help all the users and all the sectors to make their plans and for us to manage better the water resources. Next one, please. Here we have one study that we published last year about the impacts of climate change in the water resources. And in this map, you can see the water balance in Brazil, the drier areas, and here you can see we have a lot of water, but please the other one. You can see here the evolution of the irid index. So here we have before the 90s and here after the 90s. You can see that we are already feeling this. Here is the zone where we had the same arid area, but now we are already registering arid areas. So we are so poor on water resources here. Here in Amazon, we are having much more periods of scarcity of water, especially for the users, not in quantity. And here in the south, we are having much more intensity in quantity of water. And here you can see, last year we had a huge flood with people during a month was underwater, and our study shows that this scenario will go in this way for the further years. Thank you, Anil. I'd like to show a little bit of our system, and I'll be here for the questions.
Thank you, Cristiane. I think, this always reminds me the complexity of water resources. In a huge country, Brazil, which is recognized as one of the water-rich country, you have spatial and temporal variation within this country. From the outsider, we always consider Brazil is so rich on water resources, but you see from this map, the spatial and temporal variability. So it's a complex issue of managing water. We'll go, there may be some of the questions, we will take it later in the discussion. We'll move from Brazil to how to track resiliency, how to do water resiliency tracking. So from Global Alliance for Adaptation, Mr. Glauco, Kimura, Freita will present water resilience tracker and case study. Over to you.
Thank you, Anil. Thanks for all for coming. I'm very happy to be here in this sharing this stage with such honored guests. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Glauco Kimura. I am a Water Resilience Tracker Coordinator for Brazil, representing not only Alliance for Global Water Adaptation, but also International Water Management Institute, ARUP, and Deltares, who are the main partners for this work globally and in Brazil. Okay, next, please. I would like also to acknowledge here the partnership that we have with the Brazilian government, represented here by the National Water Agency and National Water and Sanitation Agency, with Mrs. Cristiane and Gisela, and Mr. Adalberto, who represents the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, which is another key partner for this work in Brazil. So I don't have too much time, it's only 5 minutes, so I will not be able to go through the Water Resilience Tracker tool, but very shortly, the tracker is a tool that helps the countries to diagnostic water resilience in their national climate planning, because water, as we all know, is not very well considered in climate plans and policies. So this is a global gap that is becoming more and more clear, and in this COP I was happy to see a lot of this recognition here. So the tracker really is to work in this gap, okay? And the Water Resilience Tracker is now being implemented in over 10, 11 countries. Next, please. So I'm going directly on how the tracker is being implemented in Brazil. We have this phase 1 and phase 2. We are now in the second phase of the Water Resilience Tracker in Brazil. The first phase happened last year. We under the leadership of the ANA, the National Water and Sanitation Agency, and with the partnership with University Federal do Ceará Federal University, that worked with ANA to apply the Water Resilience Tracker in 8 national plans that are here, the NDC, the National Adaptation to Climate Change Plan of 2016, not the one that has been successfully launched in this COP, right, Adalberto? The Water Resources National Plan, the Water Security National Plan, the Agriculture Plan, the Sanitation National Plan, the Energy Plan, and the National Civil Defense Plan. So this work was carried out last year, and in March this year we have a national validation workshop with the ministries responsible for those plans. Next, please. And the results of this first phase can be downloaded in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Portuguese. It's online. Next, please. Yeah, people are using the QR code. So the University Federal of Ceará used the AI tool to make this work easier, and it's innovative of Brazil. Other countries, the other 10, 11 countries haven't used the AI, and this is an innovation from Brazil. The AI tool helped the team. They created a language processing tool that really scan a vast amount of policy documents and then they use this data analyst plugin of GPT-4 to assess whether the responses really contain sufficient evidence to answer key policy questions, and they have a double calibration that happen with different sets of stakeholders, different sets of experts, to make sure that the correct and adjusting evidence and classification. Next, please. So the main findings of phase one was that role of water was not adequately considered in national plans in the context of climate change, so we confirmed this. We also confirmed that it's necessary more intersectoral integration and more regulatory flexibility and strengthening of the local capacities. So only among the 8 national plans that were assessed, only 2 have higher scores, because these 2 gives you scores, and only 2 have higher scores, the water and agricultural national plan. Next, please, I'm wrapping up here. So the phase 2 started after this national validation workshop in March. So we are working in these 4 work streams. Next, please. We are using the tracker to assess the 16 national adaptation sectoral plans under the leadership of Ministry of Environment and Climate Change and UNIFESP. Next, please. And we are, under the leadership of Ana, we are testing these 2 at the sub-national level for the first time in 6 basins in Brazil. I don't have time to explain. Next, please. And we are developing a capacity building platform, a kind of toolbox of adaptation focused for basin committees that will be very important for more than 200 basin committees that we have in Brazil. And lastly, next please, we have a communication and outreach component. So that's it. I'm sorry, I passed 1.5 minutes. Thank you very much, Anil, and I hope we can have a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Glauco. I mean, of course, it's very difficult to maintain the time, but we will try our best. I don't want to put pressure to our moderator later on. The third case study we are going to have from Canada, from Québec. The case study will be presented by Raquel for Naud from Québec office. Over to you. And you have 5 minutes.
Great. Can you hear me? Better now? Okay, great. Okay, I'll start again. Great. Well, first of all, apology because I'm not Jason Naud, the original speaker had to be pulled up in another meeting. And I'm also not... Oh, do you have this slide? Okay. I'll continue. I'm not a technical expert on water management, but my wonderful team in Canada prepared me some very interesting notes, so I'll make my best to convey them. Thank you so much, UNESCO, for convening this really interesting event in one of very pressing issue of our time on water. In Quebec, we're really happy because we have a pilot project on active water management, which I will try to present in a few seconds. But I have some element of context that can continue. So, you know, when you think of Quebec and when you think of Canada, water doesn't seem like an issue. You know, our territory is really vast. Quebec alone holds nearly 3% of the world renewable fresh water. So I have to say that for a very long time we didn't think about water management. However, we're realizing now that this water abundance does not protect us from having supply challenges. And like everywhere else in the world, now the impact of climate change in Quebec and Canada are increasingly visible, and we have a lot of frequent summer droughts, growing pressure on our watershed, and we have rising conflicts between water users. So a lot of the summer, there's a lot of pressure coming to the agricultural system that is not able to have enough water. Our rivers and smaller streams are suffering from low flow periods. They're more frequent, they last longer, they're more severe. it really puts our aquatic ecosystem at risk, and it threatens some private wells and weaken the vital sectors such as agriculture. But it also reshaped the balance of our water system. In southern Quebec, for example, water consumption already exceeds 20% of the minimal flow of certain rivers. So those numbers really reflect that we have a growing and concrete pressure. We had a recent study that you see there that looked at the severe flow event, and it concluded that if we don't start to if we don't start to have adaptation, the climate change effect will intensify our water management problem starting in 2045. So it's really clearly identified the need to strengthen the integrated water management so we can anticipate and better reply to those growing challenges. And so it's the goal of this new pilot project. It's called Active Water Management. It's an innovative method based on real-time monitoring of water resources and the dynamic adjustment of withdrawal. I'm supposed to say next slide here. No worries, I'll continue. Our legislative framework. So in Quebec, the water belongs to everyone. It's public. It's a collective resource. So it must be protected in the public interest. We have laws that regulate water withdrawal really strictly. So since 2014, any use that exceeds a certain threshold must be authorized by our Minister of Environment. Large users as well, they must report their water volumes, and they pay a fee into what we have is the Blue Fund. And the Blue Fund will reinvest those funds into the government measure under our Quebec's National Water Plan. So the system promotes a balance between the different users. However, it has an important limitation, which is that it's really static. So an authorization is issued typically for 10 years, so it does not reflect the actual availability of water at any given moment. So this is where active management comes in. So our pilot project is the first in Quebec. It's for the period of 2025-2028. We have identified a pilot region in Quebec, in Bécancour, and it's focused on major users, so municipality, industry, farmer, and then the recreational sector. So it's built on a very simple principle. When the water levels become too low, users are invited to temporarily reduce their consumption under the condition returns to normal. So, here it is. I'll let you figure it out where I am. So it's really a collaborative approach to governance. It's really in partnership, and we have priorities of use. So for example, the first priority will be the essential needs of the population, then the protection of aquatic ecosystem, agriculture, aquaculture, and finally the recreational and industrial use. So that active water management makes it possible to adjust our withdrawal authorization in real time based on the actual condition on the field. So this concept is actually draws inspiration for something that we have in the energy peak management model. We have very cold winter that I missed right now. It's snowing in Quebec actually. So in winter there's a peak of electricity demand, especially during the evenings. So we do coordinate with the industry to reduce the consumption during those critical hours. So now we're applying that same logic to water. So it's a 3-year pilot project. It will allow us to test the legal, technical, communication tools, and we hope we'll be able to scale it up. So we're in consultation. The launch we're supposed to be better at it and start to regulate in 2026. So we thought it would be very interesting to present a pilot project to hear your thought and idea, because we're here to learn. We don't have the time to reinvent the wheel, so we're here to also hear your thoughts. So I'll stop here, and I hope I will be able to share the presentation. Merci.
I want you to stay for a second. I want all of us to give her a big round of applause. Firstly, she said she is not the technical person. Secondly, she was not scared without slide. And she managed to present what she wanted. So thank you so much. That's a commitment. With that, we have finished our case studies. I hope you have questions. Please park it for the moment. I would now invite a very able personality, Director of Hydrology and Crash Field from World Meteorological Organization, to have a very interactive session. And following that, we will hear commentary from Jose, who is an expert in global goal and adaptation and trained for many years. So, Stefan, over to you for the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Anil. So we go over to the panel discussion, and I would like to invite the panelists to join me here. Can I start with Ms. Loretta Girardet, how do you pronounce this correctly, from UNDRR, please, Loretta. Jorge Alvarez Sala from UNICEF, he's virtual. Can we have him online? We have an online participant. Maybe you try on that. I invite Ms. Lucia de Strasse from UNECE, Mr. Pradyuman Rana from ICIMOD, super, and Adalberto Felicio Filo from the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change here in Brazil. Adalberto, thank you. So, Jose, yeah, sure. And we also have Jose Gesti. Jose, you get a special chair. And do we have Jorge online as well? I saw something in it for a second.
So it goes on and off.
Goes on and off. Can you hear us? I'm not sure. Okay, Jorge, in case you hear us, we are not sure, so I concentrate on the colleagues in the room first. Good. This session focused on system analysis. When I was teaching at the university, to explain to the students what system analysis, you know, we had this example. There were, after the Second World War, there were a couple of planes coming down. It's a famous example, and there was no technical issue with the planes. Pilots were well trained. There was no technical problem or kind of intellectual problem or capacity problem with the pilots. But somehow the way all these flips and things in the cockpit are set up, this was not intuitive. It was the system design between the engineers who make the plane flying perfectly well, and the pilots who actually were the human part of it, they made too many mistakes. It was too often went wrong. So it's a clear example that it was not a really integrated, good design and a system analysis approach where you try to bring in different domains, different disciplines together, and then ideally make 1 + 1 more than 2. And the same is the challenge in hydrology. They're also there. We are certainly connected to several different disciplines. And therefore, it's good to have a panel. All of you work on interdisciplinary projects. And I will just go according to the order which I have here on my handout. And I would like to start with Loretta. Loretta is an expert at DRR, and by definition, DRR is an interdisciplinary approach. You know, you cannot approach it from a single discipline. So I invite all of you for maybe 2, 3, 4 maximum minute statements, and then we enter into interactive discussion. But let's start with introducing yourself briefly and what's the UNDRR contribution to the table here.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Loretta Girardet. I'm the Chief of Risk Knowledge at UNDRR. And for us, risk is systemic risk. We no longer think of risk as related to a hazard, but it's really the interconnectedness of different systems that's creating disaster risk. And we know that 9 out of 10 disaster events right now linked to natural hazard are water related. So I would say that our approach to disaster risk reduction is really about addressing systemic risk by understanding risk, not where it manifests, but how it is produced. And that means what are the underlying vulnerabilities, the exposure, the hazards, how do these interconnect? Where are the failures in the systems? And I think the easiest way you could see this, you know very well because we're working together on it, is early warning systems. This truly is a system that requires multiple components to come together. And often when early warning systems fail, it's not because of the technology, it's because of the interconnectedness between the different variables that need to come together. And that's often because we see very siloed institutions that need to work together. Although their mandates are complementary, they often do not have the shared collaboration. So I think I'll leave it there. There's a lot more to say about it. But certainly, to manage disaster risk and water-related risks, you need a systemic approach. And there are a few countries right now that are really at the forefront of developing systemic approaches to managing risk.
Super. We hope to hear more about these countries. And I hand over to Lucia from UNESCO. They work a lot on international river basins, and that's also certainly something that you cannot look from an engineering approach only. So, introduce yourself and share with us what is the UNESCO approach to system analysis.
Thank you, and I think you have introduced me without knowing, because I'm a hopeless engineer in a team of lawyers, mainly. I work at the Secretariat of the UN Water Convention that supports countries in transboundary water cooperation. Much of the water worldwide is transboundary, so this is it's a big global issue. And about 10 years ago, when there was, I mean, a lot of you would remember there was this craze about the web nexus. So also we did our part. There was the Water Convention parties decided to set up a dedicated task force to study cross-sectoral issues and to be able to support countries improving cross-sectoral cooperation. Also across the borders, and this is very complicated. And I would say, I would say more later, I guess, in the discussion. But overall, we, from the Secretariat point of view, facilitating this type of discussion, we saw a shift, let's say, from understanding what the interconnected, how interconnected the systems are. And therefore, what are the areas of cooperation and so on and so forth, to how actions and policy decisions affect other sectors. And therefore, we move from the physical world to the governance world, and I think ultimately we came up a bit with the conclusion that systems need to put decision makers at the very center, because decisions are almost always political, sometimes also irrational, sometimes even not coherent with the understanding of the system in an optimal term.
Super. Let's hope that this COP is different and that the decisions are rational and based on the latest science. Let's work for that. I hand over to Jorge. I'm not sure, Jorge, are you hearing us? Yes, you can. Warm welcome to Jorge Alvarez-Salva from UNICEF. Can you share with us briefly 2-3 minutes UNICEF's contribution to the table here?
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me well. Wave. Yes, fantastic. So allow me to maybe share UNICEF's journey in what we call the climate shift, which can be summarized as an institutional commitment to shift all of our roughly $1 billion annual investment in water and sanitation to be climate resilient. We launched this shift in 2020. And very early we realized that our results would be business as usual if our partners continue to do business as usual. And because UNICEF works with, very closely with government, with civil society organizations as implementing partners, we needed not only to shift our own programs, but really to contribute to shift the entire sector in a systemic way. So the first message from my side is that we really need to think beyond our own organization, because we all operate in networks. One key element and lesson learned is the need to build a strong coordination mechanism at the national level or at the supranational level, and to bring both water sector and climate sector stakeholders together. When putting them in the room, for the first time, we first realized that they often speak different languages. They not necessarily understand each other in the first place. But after a while, they both realized that they need each other. That water is at the center, or should be at the center of the climate agenda. Water, or climate is first felt through water, much later polluted. You have heard this, I believe, many times this week at COP. But also, the water sector needs to also hear from the climate community what is specific, what are the expectations. So my second message is similar to the previous one, the importance of coordination between water and climate sectors. And my first message, very, very quickly, you need to build capacities. You don't need to be a climate scientist to implement climate resilient water programs, but you need a water expert with the capacity to translate this climate science in water programming. But this is not immediate, and it will take some time to build capacities at scale. And I'm speaking of designers, but I'm speaking also of program managers and also decision makers. So we really need to spread this, I would say, basic climate literacy within the water sector and vice versa. We need to also explain to the climate community what are the expectations and what are the needs and how to integrate water much better in the climate discussions. I think I will stop here. I'm afraid I went a little bit above my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. This was already 3 messages, so we have several rounds, don't worry, but very clear, and thanks for stressing the need for the terminology, which is particularly interdisciplinary collaboration. One of the day-to-day challenges for us to be able to mean the same thing when we say slightly different things. Okay, next one, from EasyMod, Mr. Pradyuman.
Hi.
Please, over to you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having EasyMod and me as a panel today. I think this is a very interesting topic which I would like to contribute. But of course, like Rachel mentioned, I mean, I'm also not maybe the right expert, but maybe we're a small team here. So thanks for having us. Before I start introducing myself, I think for the benefit, I'll just introduce the region we work in. I mean, the Indo-Pacific region. It's spread across 3,500 square kilometers, ranging from the northern Afghanistan all the way to Myanmar. And it is often called the third pole as well, having the largest reserves of ice and snow after the Arctic and Antarctic. So, I mean, that's the region we work in. We work across we're an intergovernmental knowledge center working across 8 countries. And in terms of systems approach, I mean, we see the Indo-Pacific region itself as one system itself, and that's how we are actually programmed within EasyMod as well. So, I mean, we look at climate risk and air pollution is one of the programs we have action areas EasyMod. Within, of course, climate risk, we have, of course, disaster risk reduction, integrated watershed management, and cryosphere monitoring clubbed together to see this whole, changes in the cryosphere and how we can build resilience downstream, where, I mean, water resilience from climate, how we can build that within the region. That's what we're looking into. I think I'll stop there, and maybe later on I can thank you.
Super. Thank you so much. We have 2 more panelists, and then we hand over to interactive discussion, so please think about good questions. And it's now a pleasure to hand over to Adalberto Filho from Ministry of Environment and Climate Change here in Brazil. How is that in Brazil with systems approach in your ministry?
Thank you. Well, for a system thinking to advance the climate resiliency, it's not only a technical thing, it's a necessity. We've seen things from the different approaches that the sectors have as we updated our national adaptation plan, how agriculture, cities, all of them have interacting in order to get there. In our case, in Brazilian science, it has showed that restoration has been playing a very important role because of the impacts that it has on the ground surface, the water surface. We've faced in the past a lot of deforestation, and the deforestation together with the dry areas has reduced dramatically the surface water. So understanding a little bit more how science and data will help us throughout this process to understand that the system-based solution can only be successful if they're based on good evidence. Because also data, somehow it's a political decision. Data can be used politically to do a lot of things. It shapes the investments, it shapes, the power. So it's very important for us. That's what we are trying to our new National Water Resource Adaptation Plan. Also reinforcing the cooperation we need with the other countries in the region, especially La Plata bases, the Guarani Aquifer, and all of them. Because in order to build these green resilient cities, together with the river bases approach, we are trying to develop as much as possible the nature-based solutions that can help us not only guarantee water availability with the restoration, but also prepare our cities for the extreme weather events and the climate emergency that we are facing. In Brazil, floods, landslides, and droughts happen all together in the same year, the same region. So you have the biggest droughts in history, then the same region have the biggest floods in history, then suddenly the strongest rainfalls that have the biggest landslides. So it's a very dramatic situation that needs a very systemic approach to the challenge.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure the Director General of ANA agrees to that. And also when we were putting together the State of Water report last year, based on the El Nino signal, we saw this huge drought in Latin America now for a number of years and very intensive. At the same time, we had this disastrous flooding in the southern part of Brazil with 180 or so people died, and really, really dramatic changes within the same year in the same country. Very erratic behavior of the hydrological cycle. Now, to the last panelist, a pleasure to introduce Dr. Jose Gesti, sorry, I mixed your sir and first name. Jose, from the Sanitation and Water for All Alliance. Over.
Thank you, Stefan. From our side, I'm coming from Sanitation and Water for All, which is a large partnership hosted in UNICEF. And I'm actually very happy to intervene in this panel because we have just 3 weeks ago celebrated and convened together with UNICEF and the government of Spain in Madrid a ministerial meeting in which the topic was perhaps not systemic change, but it was breaking the silos. For us, the key message here is that obviously at the core of our partnership is the resilience of water supply, sanitation and hygiene. But the key message that we want to deliver after the Madrid Compact, which is the declaration that it was agreed, is that the resilience of water and sanitation services entirely depends from a systemic resilience. We cannot have continuity of services if there is no resilient water sets, resilient ecosystems, and indeed resilient healthcare facilities and health systems and food systems. So the resilience of one piece relies on the resilience of the other piece. We know what are the barriers. We have discussed about them extensively. We are witnessing fragmented institutions that are working in parallel rather than together. We know that there's misalignment planning processes, that they are not relying on data systems. And we also see how financing structures are rather vertical rather than addressing cross-sectoral issues and systemic changes. It is for that the Madrid High-Level Leaders Compact that we endorsed just 3 weeks ago is calling for coherent policies, strong institutions, and sustainable financing, but it's also calling for a stronger coordination among water stakeholders, climate stakeholders, water resource management, disaster risk reduction. It's calling for the integration of different frameworks. We are here at the Conference of the Parties, the Climate Conference of the Parties, and we need to work better together with the Sustainable Development Agenda, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, and the other Rio Conventions. This is the way we think that we will drive systemic changes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So now we have the chance to get to know our panelists, and over to the audience. Are there any questions for them related to what you heard before? We also have the keynote presenters still here. I have plenty of questions, but it's more important to get you involved. Do we have a second microphone? No, we don't have. We do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Juanita Riza, Director of the National Water Network and focal point of the Environmental Justice Group of the ECLAC. So I wanted to ask Lucia, especially, and of course everyone, but Lucia, like, what would you say are the requirements to really guarantee the water for everyone in the framework of the global campaign Water for the Future? What is it that we have to do now in order to have water tomorrow? Thank you.
Okay, this is a
simple
this is a big question. I'll try to, let's say, connect it to the theme of this session a bit more explicitly, maybe. I think, you know, when we talk about systems, we sometimes forget the element of accountability, or rather, it's really easy to lose sight of accountability. The reason why there are silos and the reason why there are different systems is that decisions are being taken in different fields according to different systems, and these systems do overlap. You can look at the transboundary basin, even a watershed level with different filters like Instagram, and see different things, and according to the filter that you have, you will take your decision. So I would say it's important to be able to navigate this zoom in, zoom out, and break the silos, reconstruct the silos, to be able to do two things. So when you break the silos, share the information. This was mentioned before.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd say this is the most important. Was I shut? No. Was it like? I think this is the most important reason to break the silos, because it's not like we are not taking good decisions because we don't want to, or because we're stupid. We have a lot of information, but data is power, and data is also sometimes very difficult to integrate. So it takes an exercise, it takes a dialogue, it takes practice. Yeah. For water, this is particularly true. So I would say that the first thing to do, and we are doing it, and Jose is playing a big role in this context, in the climate field, is to break the silos with a clear objective, which is sharing information across sectors, across countries, and be very bold on that, because water is an element of risk, and is an element of productivity and what's the word, and development. Yeah.
Super, very clear. So there was one clear answer, was breaking the silos. Well, we all say that all the time, you know, but she really said it was something concrete, sharing information. I will invite all the other panelists also for one very concrete, tangible results of your work. How are you going to break the silo? You all said that in other words, but I invite you in a second. But first, we turn again to the audience, if there's questions. There is a question here, please, madam.
Yeah, okay. It's so super connected about what you mentioned, because I would really like to listen more about real examples of cross-sector collaboration between government, private sector, and like philanthropy also, to foster this development, and considering the use of like new startups and technologies. So I'm from an organization here from Brazil. It's called Quintessa, and we are an impact accelerator, and we have a business unit about water. So I would really like to hear more about that. Thank you.
Okay, she's asking for real concrete examples. Who would like to share one? Loretta, please.
I can speak about it from a policy angle, because what we promote is what we call comprehensive risk management. And what that means is we're trying to break down these national policies on disaster risk management being completely separate from NAPs, National Adaptation Plans, because there's a tremendous amount of overlap, but the way that these policies and then the implementation of the policies and program are carried out are being done, as we say, in silos. So a comprehensive risk management approach, what we've been doing is bringing together the ministries of environment, the disaster risk management agencies, but also the finance ministries together to look at where their policies and programming overlap, and often it's around issues such as nature-based solutions, early warning systems, resilient infrastructure, data systems, and we pull them together to come up with one integrated programming approach and, wherever possible, a single financing stream. So that's how we're trying to break down the silos. We work at a policy level, but we are seeing countries that are, in particular, at the local level, developing more of an integrated policy and programming approach.
Thank you. Jose would be next. And Jorge, if you want to come in, you have to wave your hand so we don't hear you otherwise. But Jose first, please.
Yeah, actually, I would like to follow up on exactly what you said, because a tangible way is like in the water and sanitation sector, we've been conducting in countries participatory approaches to risk assessments. And then, because we know that water and sanitation providers, utilities, are not used to the climate information on projections, on how to downscale projections, and even observations. There is no real knowledge around the different elements of risk exposure, or even understanding climate hazards, the frequency, the intensity of that. So we've been doing consultations in countries in which we bring together the usual suspects, which are for us water and sanitation stakeholders, together with climate stakeholders, disaster risk reduction stakeholders. We've been able to bring national stakeholders, but local communities, indigenous communities as well. And the wealth of knowledge that you can bring in participatory approaches to understand risk is for us, is the embryo of building systemic changes and resilience.
Very nicely said. We have the next question here from Anil, please. Anil Mishra from UNESCO.
I was just wondering, we talk about resilience, and Jose laid out that resilience has to be integrated from the water set to the different sector. But when we consider these climate extreme events with the uncertainty in projection, when we are not able to conform our projection with this uncertainty, and in the era of uncertainty, how to build confidence, how you create buy-in effect from your local stakeholders.
Good. The question is clear from local stakeholders. Concrete examples. What are that?
Well, just to deal with all this challenge that we have been debating, I think one of the things that we decided to do was to create a national circular water program, in which we got the mayors and the subnational governments together with different ministers and agencies and the river bases partners to think about how could we promote on the short term actions that would somehow promote more circularity, not only to reduce the use of water, but also to reuse. So we have a couple of presidential decrees and ministerial decrees coming, and mainly of them on the use of gray water, or the use, of water from the agriculture sector. And what we try to do is having the subnational governments, especially the ones that are the ones that regulate the use of water, how they would approach together with us some of these projects.
Thank you. Another contribution?
Maybe I can come in?
Please, but you might, please.
Yeah. I mean, it's not at a large scale, but something that we've been doing is at Eastern we've been working at sub-watershed level as well. So we develop integrated water river basin management plans at watershed level as well. So that's something just to add. I mean, we've been working with local stakeholders, local authorities from different sectors, trying to, we've been working with local governments, working at different sectors, but also local communities, trying to co-develop the integrated watershed management plan. So I think that's something that has worked quite successfully, at least because this is something that we did at a municipality level, and there was actually good uptake of, understanding of the risks. Some solutions that we came up with, co-created, came up with together, and good uptake into their local plans, government level 5-year plans and annual plans. So I think that's our approach that we have been working at a smaller scale level, which has quite proved out to be quite successful.
Thank you. Please, Loretta.
Maybe I'll just add to this. For us, the local action is most important for managing disaster risk. And although there's been a lot of effort that's been focused on developing national plans, less than half of the cities claim to have or report having resilience strategies in place. So we focus on multi-stakeholder approaches to understanding risk at the local level. And we've developed a series of scorecards for cities to use where they bring on the private sector, civil society, NGOs, government ministries to collectively understand risk. Now, these are not in-depth risk assessments. It's really a stock take. But it's a way of mobilizing different components of society to collectively understand what's at stake in their cities and where the major risks lie, so that this is the beginning of then triggering more in-depth risk assessments, but it's trying to ensure an inclusive approach, because above all, what's needed for systemic risk management is a whole of society, whole of government approach. So these are some of the tools that we've been developing, and we've just launched this week the latest tool, which for me is probably a hazardous event that requires the most systemic approach, and that's extreme heat. So really helping cities understand how they're looking at extreme heat. This requires tremendous cross-sectoral collaboration and a true understanding of existing but future heat impacts. So this is the type of scorecard that we've been developing to help support this local knowledge building.
Good. One more, and then we should also move towards data and AI according to the questions. But
okay.
please,
So
first,
I'll be
Lucia,
very
now.
brief. But since some tools were mentioned, I'd like to mention the methodology for assessing water, food, energy ecosystem nexus under the Water Convention, which we developed through a consultative process with a lot of partners, and most importantly with the countries who were engaged in this task force. And then this methodology was applied several times in different basins around the world, and now it's also being used by partners. ICIMOD is applying it in the Hindu Kush region, I believe, without us being involved. But it's great to see that it has a life. But what I wanted to say is that it's a very flexible methodology that tries to capture the interconnectedness of these different systems at different scales, from the watershed to the local level, and some of the assessments had a very important element, a local element. I'm thinking, for example, the case in North Africa, in the Northwestern Sahara Aquifer, where the beginning and the end of it was agriculture and small-scale farming, and the problems, the challenges at the local level were directly related to water, to decisions taken on water at very different scales. Yeah. So there is also that tool that can be used and quite some experience to learn from.
Thank you. I think we have quite a number of very nice concrete examples now for overcoming these barriers, breaking the silos, as some of you called it before. Are there more questions, or should we move on contents-wise related to that? I'm looking to the audience always. The colleagues who prepared this nice session, they also had one question, and that relates to what is probably in every single corridor here. You know, the use of AI, machine learning, use of open data, open science, and also science, also data that is maybe not following all the strict guidelines of the WMO and whatever. Citizen science, you know, what is your experience? Is that helpful for breaking the silos, as you called it before? How does that enable us to get further with our systems thinking and approach? Who wants to go on this one? Loretta, please, Lori.
I'll kick off. I think AI is going to be a great enabler for understanding vulnerability exposure. Many of the countries may have access to data on hazards, thanks to the meteorological departments, but understanding vulnerability and exposure is complicated. So we've been working with different partners, Google and Microsoft in particular, to look at how to collect vulnerability and exposure and analyze it alongside hazard information to create a better understanding of risk. And where I think this will take us eventually is to enabling more impact-based forecasting, for example, because that requires an ability to analyze large amounts of data quickly, and that's often beyond the capacity of many countries. Now, we're not there yet, but I do believe that there's a potential for us, especially WMO, UNDRR, the partners working together, to make this much more available to countries and to really improve not just the forecast, but the impact-based forecast. So understanding what the disaster event is going to do to a population, and then what the population needs to do to protect themselves. And we have other examples as well of where AI is already supporting disaster risk management around predictive analytics, for example, scenario building, foresight. The question is, how do we democratize it so that everybody benefits from it, all countries, especially resource-constrained countries that probably need it most? Thank you.
Thank you. This brings in a whole new array of actors and stakeholders into that process. Huh? Thank you. Here, Jose.
I just wanted to follow up because my point was very complementary, actually very similar. I think, you know, science and data, I think it's a very opportune question, right? Because really science and data must be at the core of systemic changes. That's for given. And I think at the speed that artificial intelligence is moving, I think we are quickly moving into the same acronym, but with a different meaning, because I think artificial intelligence is moving quickly into actionable intelligence, which is where you were driving, right? I mean, from the point of view of water and sanitation services, I mean, if we get to the point where artificial intelligence is able to predict service continuity or disruptions to the services, or point out where infrastructure is weaker based on the composite of information that we should be able to bring close together, that would be transformative, right?
Thank you. Very nice. Others, Lucia, want to come in? And I also would like to invite Jorge again. If you, whenever you want, just raise your hand. So it's more difficult to see when you want to speak.
Yes.
To us. Now even.
No, I raised my hand, but I don't think you can see my hand. But I had it raised.
Well, okay, then we let Jorge speaking now, please. Over to you.
Yes, no, also connecting with what Anil mentioned earlier about, you know, climate change scenarios, levels of uncertainty. We have to deal with this. And unfortunately, ChatGPT is not going to tell us how high the next flood is going to affect the city of Belém. We are not there yet. AI is an amazing tool. I believe everybody is using it pretty much every day nowadays. But let's not get blind by kind of AI alone. I mean, there is, I would say, high levels of uncertainty. And I think a good example of really processing and analyzing data is the climate science. The IPCC reports contain, an unbelievable amount of information, pretty much everything, not just the meteorological data, but also the estimates in terms of kind of economic development, socioeconomic development, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a lot of information that is already there, but thinking particularly on how to incorporate all these scenarios, all this climate science into a more resilient basic services, we really need to use our natural intelligence. And again, going back to the importance of building capacities within the sector to make sure that all the information that is around us is really contributing to informed decisions, with the best decisions that we can make with the information and tools that we have today. So again, let's not get kind of limited by by the uncertainties. Let's not get blind by what AI can generate today, because it can again lead to wrong conclusions. I think we still today need our human brains to make sense of what is coming and to really address those challenges. Over from my side.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we're not about replacing the human brain. It's probably more assisting as much as we can that the human brain makes a well-informed decision. But yeah, thank you so much for your contribution. It's over to Lucia now, and I'm looking to the audience. Please identify yourself if you have questions. Anil, others? Maybe Lucia first, and then we move on.
Thank you. An announcement rather, because we will have a workshop soon on AI and monitoring of water in transboundary basins. We see, I mean, it's clear that AI is going to bring a lot of different revolutions in the water sector and also probably in transboundary water cooperation. So it's about time to have this type of discussion. There are a lot of open questions, and let's say this is going to be in May 2026 in Geneva. I would say our approach now that we are conceptualizing the workshop is to put, first of all, the needs of the countries. What is it that is difficult now in terms of monitoring water, and how can AI improve that? Because what we don't want to end up having is a situation in which we are overcomplicating something and we are suggesting countries to use technology that they don't have the capacity to use, for example. So AI as a simplifier, AI as a solution. This is what we hope to see in May.
Thank you. So we all come in May to Geneva, to UNEC. Over to Anil first.
Stefan, this is a comment based on when you moderated. Maybe I didn't understand quite well. We are talking about citizen science using 3D printers, low-cost sensor to fill the data gap, and which I see in the scientific literature also citizen science and hydrology. Is that not considered by WMO protocol? Because when you mention that not certified by WMO, is that not included in WMO's protocol in data standardization? Because now we are seeing in lots of places from monitoring of glacier to runoff flow with the with the 3D sensor printers and local sensors, people are giving us validation, calibration. What is the WMO's views on that?
Yeah. So a question for the moderator. So I'm sitting on that side now to. No, I think not all the data from citizen scientists following standardized procedures. Sometimes pictures posted on a social media is very difficult to put into quantitative fluxes. When you were asking what WMO role is, or WMO is the, maybe for the others as well, it's a UN specialized agency for weather, water and climate, and then one of the main tasks is to do the normative work about also data, how to measure, how to monitor data formats, data exchange, model verification guidelines are very, very detailed. And now to answer your question, I'm not aware of any single guideline that really has a citizen science in terms of citizens' observations. However, as a hydrologist, you don't need to convince me about the value of it. So it's particular when you, for instance, rainfall patterns is a very classical example in hydrology. Particularly in the tropics, when we have convective cells, there's never enough stations. So we always miss the rainfall pattern very well. We have a few stations where standardized gauges according to normative guidelines, and then we have plenty of other observations. But maybe they have a larger uncertainty, and you can utilize them, but you would then attribute that as a higher uncertainty value into your model prediction. But it's not following the WMO guidelines on rainfall measurements in this example. The same is true for observation on under a bridge, how high the water is. Very informative information, but it's of course not a river flux, and you cannot do a quantitative analysis based on a water level because it is more complex. So is that answering enough? So there's no guidelines yet how to really deal with citizen science. It's really interesting, and I agree that this is missing. This was a question for the moderator. Now we have Jorge coming in again. Now we see your hand over, and then over to the other panelists.
Yes, no, something that I think is very important to keep into consideration. I mean, it depends, the level of information depends on the type of infrastructure and service that you are talking about. If you are a dam designer today, are you not going to consider climate change, even if in your national standards you don't need to consider climate change scenarios? In my opinion, you would make a terrible mistake if you don't consider climate change scenarios, even with the limited data that you might have in your country. That's to me more than reasonable. Again, we may not have all the information at hand, but this is critical. Now, in a rural sanitation program in a low-income country, do we really need to bring satellites and all the science to determine how high the latrines need to be elevated in a flood-prone area? Maybe not. Maybe we can consult with the elders, answering or connecting with what was just mentioned. Maybe asking the communities, okay, has this area ever flooded in the past? If it has been flooded in the past, we know that it's going to flood again. We know that it's going to flood maybe a bit more intense than previous episodes that the elder can remember, and then we can manage or we can combine the existing climate science with the experience from the communities, and we need to take into consideration these type of experiences, because often the times, or at least today, with the information, with all the AI that exists today, we cannot just rely on the scientific evidence from the climate change scenarios, etc. So we really need to make a combination, and the lack of certainty of future scenarios should not stop and prevent us from acting today. It is better to do something now than to just wait until we have all the information and all the answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Very clear. Other questions from the audience? Always happy to involve the audience as much as we can. Anything to the data AI citizen science discussion from the panel? If not, then why don't we move on to the last question? Somebody said already, decision making is not always based on the latest science and the latest information. It's sometimes driven by politics or other things. Of course, not on this COP, yeah, sure not. But I would like to invite each of the panelists, so we have a very eminent panel here, so to invite you in 1 minute maximum. So what would be the main lesson of all that discussion we had over the last 45 minutes on on systems approach in the wider sense? We all spoke about the importance of it. We all spoke about the importance of bridging silos or breaking silos and more integrated views. So what's your message today? It's almost the last session on the end of the last week, so next week is the decision-making time. What is the message from this session that should go to the negotiation rooms that Jose or somebody can bring? Can we make a quick round, 1 minute each? Who would like to start? We do ladies first, Laurie.
Well, maybe not surprisingly from a DRR perspective, my main message is that we need to start with a shared understanding of the risks across the water sector, climate action, DRR, this shared analysis that is built off of shared interoperable data sets really gives a foundation for joint action. And right now we see too much fragmentation, and there isn't this shared analysis that's driving policy and programming. So if we start with that, national down to local, but then local buck up to national, I think this gives us a good basis for more joined up systemic approaches.
Thank you. Good.
Yeah, no, I think in our case, historically, I think Brazil was facing a lot of challenge because each area was doing its agenda separately. So one guy is pushing irrigation, the other one, water for generating energy, the other, each one doing kind of separated. But what I felt as getting something better more recently is that the river basis committees, Brazil has, hundreds of river basis committees, and they have all the users of water there. So as we empower them and we are telling them that they would be the ones choosing where the investments are, it looks like that the investments have been a little bit better because they have to negotiate among all the water users inside the river basis committee. So we felt that this was able to, improve a little bit a more systemic approach between them.
Thank you. We hope you have a tete-a-tete with your Minister of Environment and Climate Change before he goes next week to the final decision making then, yeah? Thank you. Lucia.
I'd say cooperation, also unsurprisingly, from the Water Convention. I'd say cooperation with an emphasis on the benefits of it, not only on the necessity of it, but really the fact that through cooperation you have the possibility to prioritize action together, and this is very important when you think of the sustainability of what you're doing, because a joint prioritization means that more people are on board and more people will support whatever policy action you are going to implement. So cooperation across sectors, clearly we have discussed this. Cooperation across countries, cooperation across sectors and countries, cooperation at different levels. This is a lot, but there are instruments, and I think we're all, we keep on saying that there are frameworks, so let's use these frameworks. Yeah.
Thank you. It's very nice. Cooperation at the Conference of Parties should be central. Yes. But you might.
Yeah, I think, I will just add on to, of course, cooperation is an important element. What I see from at least the work I am doing, at least with EasyMode, is I think we have been working on quite a bit on the global goal on adaptation indicators as well. We do see elements on the transboundary risks and disasters that are featuring in the indicators. I think, I think she mentioned as well, I think when countries are actually preparing adaptation plans and approaches, I think it's good to actually look across the borders as well. So maybe being ambitious, but looking into kind of transboundary or regional adaptation plans would be something that, I think we should pursue into.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, from my side, well, I wanted to be a little bit more philosophical and linking what we are discussing here to the negotiation room. So here we are discussing about systemic change. Perhaps the language that is being used a few meters away from us in the negotiation room is transformation and transformative adaptation. This is actually one of the key tracks that is being discussed in the negotiation room. And my final words could be a line of what Jorge has said. Is like, I think systemic change and transformative adaptation should be our guiding star, but should never be a condition over other forms of adaptation or changes. Because as Jorge has illustrated, we cannot, systemic change and transformative adaptation is very complex, and we don't have the silver bullet. And fear of movement, it can lead, because it's a complex issue, it can lead into fear and inaction. And then what we want to avoid that by all means, because baby steps and incremental adaptation and little changes can contribute overall towards a systemic and transformative change. So my plea could be, let's use it as a guiding star, but not as a condition for moving.
Thank you very much for the philosophical link here. Last but certainly not least, Jorge, can you share some wisdom?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's difficult to not repeat. I would repeat a little bit what Loretta mentioned. There is fragmentation in the water sector. There has been fragmentation for many years between water, sanitation, hygiene, and water resource management. And there is also fragmentation between climate and the broader water sector. But it is improving. And the proof of this is that for the last 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, there has been a water pavilion in COPs. It didn't happen in the previous 25 COPs, but it has happened, and I think it has created a space in the negotiations. And also, if we look at the NDCs 3.0 that are being submitted this year, there is much more prioritization of water in the new NDCs. And this is not only the result of water being prioritized in the global goal on adaptation, it's also the result of a stronger collaboration between the water and the climate community. So this change, this collaboration, this breaking silos is happening. And just to remind that, as Jose mentioned, in Madrid just 3 weeks ago, there was a very strong message from the sector ministers meeting in which they kind of commit themselves and they encourage other countries to break those silos and to work more in a more systemic way. So I think the path is there. It is moving in the right direction, and I think we need to be optimistic.
Thank you. We appreciate your optimistic message at the end, and I would have loved to have you here at the Water Pavilion. Thanks for the nice remark also, and it's because of CV and many partners to make this happen. I think this was a very interesting panel. We give them a big hand. Thank you so much. And I hand over to Anil Mishra for the closing remarks. Just remain seated, yeah? Please, Anil.
And first of all, I would like to commend the moderator who was really instrumental to drive all this discussion. And you know, please be seated. We are going to have a photo with the moderator and organizer. I would like to recognize, I got a whole report here. Thanks to fantastic colleague from WMO Maria, from UNESCO, Yuching, Alexander, Georgette from AGWA. They were working for months, and also Manuel and Ivan. This is the team that we worked together to organize this session. You know, they gave me a whole 3-page document report. We can even publish a paper, but I would like to read only one sentence what they gave me. Let this cup of adaptation and implementation be the one where we finally break the most dangerous silo of all, the one between present needs and future consequences. Let us get to work together to catalyze system approach that is resilient but also just, inclusive and transformative. Let's give them a big hand. And with that, I would like to invite our speaker also and moderator. Let's have a photo together, and we will probably come up with the report of this session. Please, Cristiane, please come. Please come.